I heard Bianca laugh in the kitchen. My son's girlfriend. She spoke Italian. She thought I couldn't understand. She has hands like a cow. Bianca said in Italian, talking about my hands. The words hit like glass breaking. My son Lucas poured wine. He smiled at her. I knew then. Some people come to steal your treasures. Others come to steal your children. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. My name is Nora Bennett. I am 62 years old. I know when someone is lying. Lucas brought her home on a Tuesday. Rain covered the windows like tears. The house smelled of orange peel and roasted fennel. I had cooked all afternoon. She was small. Dark hair cut in precise bangs. Cream sweater that cost more than my grocery budget. Her name was Bianca Conti. From Siena, she said. Italy. When she took my hands, her fingers were soft. Too soft for honest work. No calluses. No scars. She spoke English with an accent. Pretty. Practiced. Perfect. Sono onorata, she said. I am honored. The words rolled off her tongue like water. Like silk. Like lies. Lucas looked different. Younger. Like he had been holding his breath for years. Finally exhaling. His shoulders had dropped. His smile reached his eyes. I had not seen him smile like that since Sarah. Sarah who left after the miscarriage. Sarah who took his hope with her. Sarah who made him believe love was something he did not deserve. Now this girl sat in my living room, touching the photograph of Lucas and his father, running her fingers over the cedar canoe they built together, asking questions with careful eyes. I used to work in a museum. 23 years keeping other people's art safe. Registering donations. Cataloging collections. Protecting beauty from thieves. I lived in Florence once. Just 1 year. Long ago. When I was 34 and thought adventure meant something different. I learned Italian there. Ordering coffee. Reading menus. Talking to merchants in dusty shops. The language never left me. It just waited. Sleeping in the back of my mind. At dinner, she praised everything. The focaccia I had made from scratch. The wine I had chosen carefully. The way the candlelight caught the water glasses. She offered to wash every plate. To dry every fork. To help with everything. Too helpful. Too perfect. Too practiced. Lucas excused himself. Construction site emergency. Always something breaking. Always someone needing him. Her phone rang the moment his footsteps faded. She answered in Italian. Fast. Careless. Like she forgot I was listening. Tranquilla, e ingenua. Relax. She's naive. My hands kept moving. Salt on the fish. Pepper over the vegetables. Parsley scattered like green snow. My face stayed calm. My smile stayed steady. Ex curatrice. Accesso perfetto I donatori e I cataloghi. Former curator. Perfect access to donors and catalogs. The words hit my chest like stones. Sharp. Cold. True. Prima il fidanzamento, poi vediamo I liciti. First the engagement. Then we see about bequests. I set down the salt. Picked up the wine. Poured another glass. My hands did not shake. They had learned steadiness from grief. From loss. From 23 years of handling precious things. She kept talking. Planning. Calculating. Ha la mani da mucca. She has hands like a cow. I looked at my hands. 62 years old. Lined from washing dishes. Spotted from gardening. Scarred from learning to live alone. Cow hands, she called them. The wine glass felt heavy. Solid. Real. I walked to the dining room. Smiled at her. complimented her scarf, asked about Sienna's horse race. The palio. She blinked, paused, calculated, then smiled back, all teeth and emptiness. Lucas returned. His face was bright, happy, alive in a way I had forgotten. He touched her hand under the table. Small gestures, automatic, like breathing. They left after coffee, after dessert, after she helped with every dish, after she kissed my cheek and promised to return soon. Lucas hugged me at the door. Tight, grateful. Thank you, he whispered into my shoulder. For making her feel welcome. I patted his back, felt his happiness through his jacket. Solid, fragile, dangerous. After they left, I sat in my kitchen. The dishes were clean. The house was quiet. The rain kept falling. I opened my laptop, found my old address book. Digital files from 23 years at the museum. Names, addresses, phone numbers, email addresses, donation histories, collection details, rich widows with art collections, elderly collectors with no heirs, small foundations with loose oversight, private museums with trusting boards. In the wrong hands, it was a treasure map. In her hands, it was a weapon. I thought about Lucas, his smile tonight, his hope, his happiness, his fragile, dangerous happiness. I thought about my husband, Daniel. What he would say, what he would do. Daniel taught me about wood. Good wood sings when you tap it. Bad wood sounds hollow, dead, empty. People are the same, he used to say. You listen for the hollow sound. I had heard it tonight. In her laugh, in her words, in the careful way she touched my son, in the practiced way she said my name. All hollow, all empty, all wrong. I closed the laptop, made tea with shaking hands, sat by the kitchen window. Outside, Seattle slept under its blanket of rain. The city kept its secrets, held them close, whispered them to no one. I would keep secrets too. But first, I needed help. I needed to know who she really was, where she came from, what she wanted, how she found us, how she found him. Most importantly, I needed to know how to stop her. Without breaking my son's heart. Without losing him forever. Without destroying the first happiness he had found in years. The tea grew cold in my hands. I drank it anyway. Bitter. Real. True. In the morning, I would make phone calls. Ask questions. Start digging. Find answers. But tonight, I sat with the silence. With the rain. With the sound of her laughter still echoing in my kitchen. She has hands like a cow. I flexed my fingers. These cow hands had cataloged Renaissance bronze. Had filed insurance papers. Had registered priceless donations. These hands had held my husband as he died. Had signed his death certificate. Had buried him alone. These hands had raised my son. Fed him. Clothed him, comforted him through heartbreak, through loss, through years of believing he was not enough. These hands knew how to hold things, how to protect them, how to keep them safe, how to let them go when necessary. But not my son. Not without a fight, not without answers. I turned off the lights, locked the doors, checked the windows, went upstairs to my empty bedroom. Tomorrow would bring phone calls, questions, investigations, answers. Tonight brought only the sound of rain, the memory of her voice, the weight of her lies, and the hollow sound of everything she pretended to be. Still echoing, still cutting, still sharp as glass in my quiet house. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. I called Tessa the next morning. My niece works for immigration services. She knows fraud when she sees it. We met at Pike Place Market. Coffee steam rose between us. The smell of fish and flowers filled the air. I told her everything. The phone call. The Italian words. The careful questions about my museum contacts. Tessa listened without interrupting. She stirred her cappuccino, round and round, thinking. Red flags, she said finally. Too many to ignore. The social media was too perfect. Every photo staged. Every story rehearsed. The employment history had gaps. Convenient gaps. But this was not simple marriage fraud. This was bigger. More organized. More dangerous. Art laundering, Tessa explained. Stolen pieces donated to small foundations. False appraisals. Money cleaned through charity donations. I thought about my address book. 23 years of contacts. Collectors with loose security. Estates with careless heirs. Private museums with trusting boards. Perfect targets. That afternoon, I walked through my neighborhood. Tree-lined streets. Quiet houses. Normal lives continuing around me. I thought about Lucas. How he touched her hand. How he looked at her. Like she was salvation instead of destruction. Men in love see only light. Tell them about shadows and they think you are cruel. I could not tell him. Not yet. Not without proof. At home, I opened my laptop again. Searched for Julian Park. Private investigator. Retired police detective. Good reputation. Quiet methods. He met me at a coffee shop in Fremont. Gray hair. Tired eyes. Face like someone who had heard every lie. I hired him without hesitation. Your son is in danger, he said after hearing my story. But he is safe for now. These operations move slowly. Build trust first. Then they strike. How long do we have? I asked. Months maybe. Depends on how much access she needs. How much money she thinks she can reach. I gave him her full name. Bianca Conti from Siena. Her phone number. The details I remembered from dinner. Within 3 days, he called back. The gallery in Rome where she claimed to work. It had closed 2 years ago. The phone number redirected to voicemail. Dead end. But he found something else. A second identity. Carla Mendez from San Diego. Dual citizenship through her grandmother. Same face. Different name. Different story. In Madrid 5 years ago, someone matching her description had courted a ceramics professor. An older man. Widowed. Wealthy. Access to museum donors and private collections. She vanished after 6 months. Took a crate of donated artworks with her. The professor never reported it. Too ashamed. Too broken. Julian showed me photographs. Security footage from a Madrid gallery. The same dark hair. The same careful smile. The same predator eyes. Is Lucas safe? I asked again. For now. But she is accelerating. Holiday emotions make people careless. Christmas proposals happen fast. What about her family? She has parents flying in for the holidays. Johnny and Rosa Conti. The airline tickets are real. But the people might not be. I stared at the photographs. This woman in my kitchen. Laughing. Planning. Calculating my son's destruction. The coffee grew cold in my hands. The shop filled with afternoon light. People talked around us. Normal conversations. Normal problems. My problem sat at my dinner table. Called my hands ugly. Planned to steal from widows and children and trusting hearts. That night, I cooked dinner alone. Set 1 plate. Poured 1 glass of wine. Ate in silence. The house felt different now. Like someone had moved the furniture slightly. Everything familiar but wrong. I thought about Daniel, what he would do, how he would fight. Daniel was gentle with people, tough with problems. He would not let this woman destroy our son. Neither would I. I opened my laptop, started typing, lists of contacts, but not the real ones. Fake names, false addresses, dead ends disguised as treasures. If she wanted my museum files, she would get them. Wrong information wrapped in believable details. A trap made of paper and lies. Let her steal fake maps to nowhere. Lucas called while I worked. His voice was bright, happy. He wanted to bring her to Sunday dinner. Make it a tradition. Of course, I said. I would love that. My voice stayed steady. My hands kept typing. After he hung up, I sat in the dark kitchen. Rain tapped the windows. The city slept around me. Sunday dinner, with the woman planning to rob us blind. I closed the laptop, locked the doors, turned off the lights. Upstairs, I lay in bed listening to the rain, thinking about traps, about bait, about the difference between protecting someone and lying to them. Sometimes love requires deception, small lies to prevent bigger damage. Sometimes the only way to save someone is to let them believe they are safe while you remove the danger. I had been a museum registrar for 23 years. I knew how to handle thieves, how to track stolen property, how to build cases that would stand up in court. This woman thought she was hunting sheep. She had found a shepherd instead. A shepherd with experience, with connections, with nothing left to lose. She could call my hands ugly. She could plan my son's heartbreak. But she had made one mistake, one critical error. She had underestimated the hands she mocked. These old hands, these cow hands, these hands that had spent decades protecting precious things from people exactly like her. The rain kept falling. I kept planning. By morning, I would have lists of fake contacts, false information, poisoned bait. By Sunday, I would have more answers about who she really was. By Christmas, I would have proof enough to save my son. Even if saving him meant breaking his heart first. Even if it meant losing him to protect him. Even if it meant becoming the villain in his love story to keep him from becoming the victim in hers. Sleep came slowly. Dreams came faster. I dreamed of museums with empty walls, of thieves with gentle voices, of love letters written in disappearing ink. I woke before dawn, ready to fight. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. They arrived on a Thursday evening. Leather suitcase, perfect smiles, choreographed warmth. Johnny kissed the air near my cheek. "Your home is beautiful," he said in accented English. Rosa smelled like talc and orange blossoms. Her eyes catalogued my living room like an appraiser. Their Italian was flawless, their stories polished. He taught school. She sewed clothes. They attended church festivals under laundry lines in narrow streets. Everything they said sounded rehearsed, like lines from a travel brochure. Lucas glowed with happiness. He had brought Amarone wine and white dahlias. "Isn't this incredible?" he whispered while I arranged the flowers. "They flew all this way to meet us." Before anything official, I repeated, "How thoughtful." My voice stayed level. My smile stayed fixed. During antipasti, they switched to Italian, assuming my understanding was ornamental, like the china I used for special occasions. "Ricordati, Rosa," Johnny murmured. "La zia ha l'archivio." Remember, Rosa. The aunt has the archive. I set down olives and crackers. Kept my face pleasant. My hands steady. "Know me, Stime?" Case P&A di quadri, Rosa replied. Names, appraisals, houses full of paintings. I poured more wine, asked about their flight, commented on the weather. They praised the prosciutto, the cheese, the bread I had baked that morning. In Italian, they dissected my cooking like critics. Too much salt, not enough pepper, amateur technique. In English, they complimented every bite. Bianca Deve Stringer, Rosa said quietly. Natali, emozioni, l'anello. Bianca needs to tighten it. Christmas, emotion, the ring. Lucas carved more salami, offered crackers, beamed at his girlfriend's parents. Poi il catalogo, Johnny added. Then the catalogue. I asked which contrada they supported in Siena. The neighborhoods that race horses in the famous Palio. Their eyes flickered. A moment of calculation. Nicchio, Johnny said. The Shell District. Later, Rosa mentioned supporting Onda. The Wave. Then Johnny praised Torre. The Tower. A real Sienese family would never make those mistakes. Never claim loyalty to competing neighborhoods. Never confuse ancient rivalries. I nodded, smiled, filed the information away. After dinner, Bianca carried coffee to the living room. I followed with almond cookies on my grandmother's plate. She leaned close to Rosa. Whispered in Italian, "Ha capito qualcosa?" Did she catch anything? "E vecchia, ma attenta," Rosa replied. "Non sottovalutarla. She's old, but sharp. Don't underestimate her." I set the cookies on the coffee table. Arranged napkins. Straightened magazines. My movements were calm, methodical, giving no sign I understood every word. Back in the kitchen, Lucas hugged me from behind. "Thank you for making this perfect," he said into my shoulder. "I'm going to ask her on Christmas Eve." The words hit like ice water. Christmas Eve was 2 weeks away. "Lovely," I managed. "She's very lucky." He squeezed tighter. I felt his joy through his jacket. Warm, trusting, fragile. After they left, I washed dishes until the porcelain gleamed. Dried every fork. Put everything in its proper place. The house felt contaminated, like strangers had moved my furniture. Touched my photographs. Breathed my air. I called Julian from my bedroom. Spoke quietly into the phone. "They're not her parents," I told him. "They don't know Siena. They made basic mistakes about the city." He listened without interrupting, asked a few questions, took notes. "I'll run their names through databases," he said. "Check immigration records. See what I can find." "How much time do we have?" I asked. 2 weeks until the proposal. Maybe less if they panic." I hung up, sat on my bed in the darkness. Outside, Seattle sparkled like scattered diamonds. My son wanted to marry a thief. Her accomplices had eaten at my table. Praised my cooking while planning my betrayal. I opened my laptop. Began typing fake information. Museum contacts with wrong phone numbers. Collectors who didn't exist. Private galleries that had closed years ago. Believable lies wrapped in authentic details. If they wanted my professional network, they would get it. Every name carefully poisoned. Every address leading nowhere. I worked until my eyes burned. Until my fingers cramped. Until I had created a catalog of beautiful deceptions. Then I printed everything. Put the pages in a folder. Left it on my desk where curious eyes might find it. Bait for thieves who thought they were clever. In the morning, I would call more contacts. Warn trusted friends. Build walls around the people who mattered. But tonight, I sat in my quiet house. Thinking about Christmas Eve. About proposals. About the look on Lucas's face when he discovered the truth. Some heartbreaks are necessary. Some lies protect more than they hurt. I thought about Daniel, what he would say, how he would handle this situation. Protect the boy, he would tell me. No matter the cost. I closed the laptop, turned off the lights, went to bed with the weight of coming betrayal. In 2 weeks, my son would propose to a woman who didn't exist. Would offer his heart to someone planning to steal from us both. Unless I stopped her first. Unless I found proof strong enough to save him. Unless I became the villain in his love story to keep him from becoming the victim in hers. Sleep came slowly. Dreams came faster. I dreamed of wedding dresses made of lies. Of rings that turned fingers green. Of promises written in disappearing ink. I woke knowing what I had to do. The real war was just beginning. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Julian's updates arrived like medical reports. Precise. Clinical. Devastating. He met me at a small bakery in Ballard. The air smelled of cinnamon and yeast. Normal scents in an abnormal situation. Photographs spread across the table between us. Timelines. Bank records. A flowchart that made romance look like logistics. Carla Mendez had worked for a Marbella art syndicate. Under investigation now. Her specialty was harvesting information. Courting insiders. Finding weak points in security systems. She doesn't just want residency, Julian explained. She wants access. Your network. Lucas's engineering clients. Any estate where art might be unguarded. I studied the photographs. Madrid. Barcelona. Lisbon. Always the same pattern. Always the same predatory smile. Here's the pivot point, he continued. She's been in contact with handlers. People who move stolen pieces. Transform them into legitimate donations. The coffee turned bitter in my mouth. This was bigger than I had imagined. More organized. More dangerous. We need federal help, Julian said quietly. This isn't just fraud. It's trafficking. Cultural property crimes. He gave me a business card. Special Agent Lucia Ortiz. Homeland Security Investigations. Art and Antiquities Unit. I stared at the card. Government involvement meant questions. Paperwork. Exposure. It also meant justice. That afternoon, I met Agent Ortiz in a small office above a bakery. The smell of bread drifted up through the floorboards. She was younger than I expected. Sharp eyes. Careful movements. The kind of person who listened more than she spoke. I told her everything. The dinner conversation. The fake parents. The timeline leading to Christmas Eve. She took notes without interrupting. Asked specific questions. Wanted exact quotes from the Italian conversations. You want to save your son and close a pipeline, she said finally. We can do this clean. Professional. Minimal drama. I won't humiliate Lucas, I told her. Not if I can help it. She nodded. Understood. But if she's transmitting information to handlers, timing matters. We need to catch her in the act. Evidence. Transmission. Criminal intent. The legal terms felt cold. Clinical. My son's heartbreak reduced to procedural requirements. That evening, I set the trap more carefully. Recipe cards on my kitchen counter. Wedding china on the dining table. Sticky notes with fake contact information scattered like breadcrumbs. If Bianca searched my house, she would find treasures. Wrong treasures leading nowhere. Lucas called while I worked. His voice was bright. Nervous. He wanted to show me the ring. Tomorrow, he said. Over lunch. Just the two of us. I agreed. My voice stayed steady. My hands kept arranging false clues. After hanging up, I sat in my quiet kitchen. Thought about engagement rings. About promises. About the difference between love and performance. Lucas had been practicing his proposal. Rehearsing words. Planning a moment he believed would change his life. It would change his life. Just not how he expected. I opened my laptop. Began typing an email to museum contacts. Warning them about potential fraud. Asking them to report suspicious inquiries. A network of protection spreading outward from my kitchen table. The next day, Lucas arrived early for lunch. He carried a small velvet box like it contained his future. It was beautiful. A solitaire diamond in vintage platinum. Simple. Classic. Honest. Everything his intended bride was not. "Do you think she'll like it?" he asked. His eyes were hopeful. Vulnerable. "It's perfect," I told him. "She would be crazy not to love it." Both statements were true. The ring was perfect. She would be crazy. But not the kind of crazy he imagined. We ate sandwiches and talked about Christmas plans. About whether to have the proposal at home or somewhere special. About when to tell friends. Normal conversation about abnormal circumstances. Lucas's happiness filled the room like sunlight. Warm. Bright. Blinding. After he left, I called Agent Ortiz. Reported the timeline. Christmas Eve proposal confirmed. Less than 10 days remaining. "We're moving the investigation forward," she said. "Surveillance starts tomorrow. Phone taps require warrants. But we'll get them." I hung up. Sat in my living room looking at family photographs. Lucas as a baby. His first day of school. High school graduation. College. Normal milestones in a normal life. Now federal agents would tap his girlfriend's phone. Monitor his conversations. Turn his love story into evidence. But better a broken heart than a broken life. Better disappointment than destruction. That night, I cooked dinner for one. Set a single place. Poured wine into one glass. The house felt different now. Like it was holding its breath. Waiting for explosion or resolution. Outside, December rain tapped against windows. Seattle's winter rhythm. Familiar. Comforting. I thought about Daniel. What he would think about federal agents and wiretaps. About lies and necessary betrayals. "Protect the boy," he would say. "Whatever it takes." I finished dinner. Washed dishes. Locked doors. Turned off lights. Upstairs, I lay in bed listening to rain. To silence. To the weight of secrets. In my bedside drawer, I kept a photograph. Daniel and Lucas building their cedar canoe. Summer light. Honest work. Simple joy. Before thieves. Before lies. Before love became a weapon. I touched the photograph's edge. Made a promise to both men in it. This woman would not destroy what we had built. This family. This trust. This love. Not while I still had fight left in these old hands. Not while I still had breath to protect what mattered. The rain kept falling. I kept planning. Tomorrow would bring surveillance. Warrants. Evidence gathering. Christmas Eve would bring truth. Pain. Justice. Tonight brought only the sound of water against glass. The weight of necessary deceptions. The cold comfort of doing right by doing wrong. Sleep came slowly. Dreams came faster. I dreamed of nets closing on prey. Of rings returned to velvet boxes. Of love letters written in languages nobody could translate. I woke knowing the endgame was coming. Ready or not. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The house glowed like a jewelry box. Candles on every surface. Fairy lights strung through pine branches. The reliable choreography of Christmas. I had cooked for hours. Prime rib, roasted vegetables, bread pudding with bourbon sauce. Everything perfect for a perfect deception. Bianca arrived in winter white, carrying panettone and a smile engineered for cameras. Her eyes swept the room. Calculating, measuring, pricing. Lucas touched his jacket pocket twice. The ring pressed against his ribs like a heartbeat. He moved like a man walking toward his future. I set an extra place at the table. Crystal glasses. Good silver. The kind of setting that whispered money. An extra plate, Bianca asked. Her voice was honey over steel. A neighbor's niece, I explained. She had nowhere to go for Christmas. Agent Ortiz sat in my living room reading a novel. Gray sweater. Glasses. The near invisibility of women who learned to be furniture when needed. Dinner moved through its acts like theater. Bianca laughed at Lucas's stories about sourdough disasters. Praised the wine. Complimented the table settings. Her performance was flawless. Oscar-worthy. Johnny and Rosa played their parts perfectly too. Critiquing my cooking in Italian. Praising it in English. Their hypocrisy seasoned every bite. When Bianca excused herself for a phone call, Ortiz's eyes flicked to mine. A silent signal. The trap was closing. In the hallway, I heard Italian like poison in my ears. Domani alle 8. La lista della case e il contatto della fondazione. Tomorrow at 8. The list of houses and the foundation contact. Dopo il fidanzamento, mi dà l'archivio. After the engagement, she gives me the archive. I stepped forward with folded napkins. Spoke gently in Italian. If you steal from widows' walls, try not to confuse your paleo allegiances. She froze. Her mask slipped for one heartbeat. Raw calculation showed through the cracks. Then she smiled. Your pronunciation is charming, she said in English. Like a vintage postcard. The accent was back. Perfect Tuscan wrapped around perfect lies. We returned to the table. To the performance. To the last act of an elaborate play. Lucas lifted his wine glass. His voice was soft, nervous. To traditions, he said. And to new ones. He reached for his pocket. The velvet box. His future happiness. Before dessert, Ortiz said pleasantly. She stood. Placed a leather case on my dining table. I have a tradition too. Her badge filled the room like a bell ringing. Special Agent Lucia Ortiz. Homeland Security Investigations. Ms. Conti. Mr. and Mrs. Conti. We need to discuss some irregularities. The room split like an earthquake. Bianca's accent vanished. Flat California sliding into place like a different person wearing her face. Gianni's jaw went rigid. Rosa's hands turned to stone. Lucas looked from badge to me. Betrayal rising like floodwater. You knew, he asked. His voice broke on the words. I knew enough to be careful, I said. Hating every syllable that would follow. The ring box hit my grandmother's carpet. Soundless as a prayer falling. Lucas stepped back like the floor had shifted under his feet. How long, he whispered. Since the first dinner. Since she called me names in Italian. Since she outlined where she would start cutting. Bianca laughed. No music in it now. Just edges. Just cruelty. He was a tidy mark, she said. Eyes fixed on Lucas. Decent. Predictable. You are the kind of man who believes good behavior earns love. Stop, Lucas whispered. The word fell like a stone. Carla Mendez, Ortiz continued. Her voice was level. Professional. You're under investigation for conspiracy to traffic stolen cultural property. Wire fraud. Identity fraud. Identity fraud, Lucas repeated. The words sounded foreign in his mouth. She copied a real woman's life, Ortiz explained. There is a Bianca Conti in Siena. Hospitality professional. Her social footprint was stolen. Replicated. Weaponized. Johnny and Rosa moved toward the door. But it had already opened. Two agents entered like shadows. Their faces were pure procedure. Handcuffs met wrists. Rights were read. Protests fell on professional ears. Carla's phone lit up in Ortiz's gloved hand. Messages flowing like water. Drop locations. Catalog screenshots. Coded names that matched Julian's flowcharts. Carla looked at me one last time. Her eyes were winter. You haven't saved him, she said. You've vaccinated him against love. He will suspect kindness for the rest of his life. They led her into the December night. No sirens. No drama. The city swallowed the evening with professional appetite. Lucas stood in my doorway breathing fog into the cold air. Then he closed it. Leaned his forehead against the wood. You could have told me, he said to the door. I should have, I said to his back. He picked up the ring box. Turned it in the light from my Christmas tree. The diamond caught fire. Threw rainbows on my walls. I'm leaving, he said. Not forever. But not tonight either. The door clicked behind him. My house exhaled differently. The tree lights kept blinking. Brave. Determined. As if hope were electricity you could circuit through steady current. I cleared the table. Washed dishes until the water went cold. Put everything back in its proper place. Normal actions after abnormal events. In the morning, there would be paperwork. Debriefings. Legal procedures. Tonight, there was only silence. Only the weight of necessary betrayals. Only the echo of my son's footsteps walking away. I sat in my living room. Looked at family photographs. Christmas lights reflecting off glass frames. Daniel smiled back from happier times. Lucas laughed from childhood summers. Moments when love was simple. When protection didn't require deception. Outside, Seattle sparkled under winter stars. The city kept its secrets. Held them close. Whispered them to no one. I had kept my secret too. Until I couldn't anymore. Until keeping it would have cost more than telling it. The lights kept blinking. I kept remembering. Tomorrow would bring healing. Or it would bring distance. Tonight brought only the sound of my own breathing. The weight of choices made. The cold comfort of doing right by doing wrong. I turned off the lights. Locked the doors. Went upstairs to my empty house. Christmas was over. The real work could begin. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Grief is a capable organizer. In the days after Christmas, it arranged everything with quiet efficiency. Julian pushed paperwork through proper channels. Agent Ortiz pulled threads that unraveled international networks. The machinery of justice ground forward without fanfare. The fake parents turned out to be professionals. On retainer to handlers in 3 countries. They had practiced being Italian for years. Carla kept trophies, photographs of private collections, screenshots of insurance appraisals, selfies taken in estate sale backrooms. Among her files, we found something unexpected. A candid photograph of a woman pouring espresso behind a hotel bar. Tagged by friends with ordinary affection. The real Bianca Conti, 28 years old, living in Siena. We reached out through legitimate channels. Email first. Then phone calls that smelled of skepticism. The response came slowly, carefully, like someone testing ice before walking. I didn't know someone used my life, she said in careful English. Police came to my hotel. My bank accounts were frozen. Clients asked questions. My mother cried. Her voice carried gravel smoothed by sunlight. Honest fatigue. Real hurt. I am not a thief, she added. The words sounded like prayer. I'm sorry, I told her. I believed you existed. That's all I had. Would you come to Seattle? Let me explain properly. Silence stretched across the ocean. Then doubt. I cannot afford the flight. I can, I said. And I'll pay for a lawyer in Siena. To unwind this mess. More silence. Consideration. Decision. 2 weeks later, I stood at SeaTac arrivals, holding a sign that said Bianca Conti. The universe laughing at its own joke. She was not the weapon Carla had imitated. She was a person. Tired. Wary. Elegant in the way of people who dress for weather and dignity. At my dining table, we drank Café Curator because it amused her. I told the story start to finish. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she pressed her palms flat on the wood. This stolen life, she said slowly. It is like someone took my house key. Walked around wearing my coat. The metaphor was perfect. Simple. True. Lucas agreed to meet her out of curiosity. Then duty. Then something else entirely. They chose a small bar on Capitol Hill. I sat across the street with postcards I didn't read. 2 hours later they emerged walking beside each other. Not touching. That would come later. Maybe. For now, they spoke the way people do when practicing honesty like a new language. Lucas called the next evening. His voice was different. Cautious. Like someone learning to walk again. We talked, he said. About lies. About truth. About what it means when someone steals your identity. She understands betrayal, I said. Better than most, he agreed. The real Bianca stayed in Seattle for a week. She helped me cook dinner. Taught me proper espresso technique. Told stories about hotel guests and Tuscan weather. She was nothing like Carla's performance. She was better. Real. Complicated. Human. When Lucas visited, they sat in my living room talking about architecture. About hospitality. About the difference between performing happiness and feeling it. I watched from the kitchen. Washing dishes. Listening to careful conversation between two people learning to trust again. Before she left, Bianca pressed something into my palm. A small watercolor. Olive trees and sky. Nothing fancy. Just honest work. On the back, she had written in neat Italian. L'ombre d'ulivo fanno la luce più dolce. Olive shadows make the light softer. The truth in 14 words. Spring arrived quietly that year. Cherry blossoms. Rain showers. The reliable resurrection of Seattle seasons. Lucas visited more often. We talked about small things. The weather. Construction projects. Recipes from my time in Florence. We didn't discuss Carla, or Christmas Eve, or the look on his face when handcuffs closed around lies. Some wounds heal better without picking at stitches. In April, he told me about letters from Italy. From Siena. From a woman who understood stolen identities and recovered trust. Nothing official, he said. No promises. Just correspondence between people learning to be honest again. I nodded, smiled, felt something loosen in my chest. In May, Agent Ortiz called with updates. Carla had accepted a plea bargain. 5 years federal prison. The art trafficking ring was dismantled. 3 countries' worth of stolen property returned to rightful owners. At a small community center in Capitol Hill, An elderly man wept over a watercolor of olives and sky. His late wife had bought it in Naples in 1968. Thought it was lost forever. Justice sometimes wears reading glasses and carries tissue. Summer ripened around us. Lucas worked on a restoration project downtown. I tended my garden. The real Bianca sent postcards from Tuscany. We were learning to be a family again. Different from before. Careful, but real. In July, Lucas brought me another watercolor. This one painted by his own hand. Clumsy but sincere. Olives against Seattle sky. It's not very good, he said. It's honest, I replied. That makes it perfect. He hung it next to Bianca's painting. Two versions of the same truth. Light filtered through shadow. Hope growing in soil that had known deception. That evening, we sat on my porch drinking wine. Watching sunset paint the city gold. I'm still angry, he said quietly. Less every day. But still. I can carry some of that, I told him. He nodded. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked. Children played. Normal sounds of normal life resuming. Do you think Dad would like her? He asked. Meaning the real Bianca. The honest one. Yes, I said. And this time I wasn't cushioning anything. He would like that she's real. We sat in comfortable silence. Two people learning to trust again. Learning that love could survive truth-telling. Could grow stronger for it. The light faded slowly. Olive shadows making everything softer. Sometimes the only way to keep treasures safe is to teach thieves there are no doors that open for them here. Sometimes the map they stole leads them to a different country entirely. One where love checks its labels. And still chooses to stay. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Lucas flew to Tuscany in spring. Not for romance, he told me. For context. He needed to see the real Siena. The actual piazza shaped like a shell. The streets where horses blur into thunder twice each summer. He met Bianca's mother, who pressed almond biscotti into his hands like treaties. Walked through the hotel where Bianca worked. Saw the morning deliveries. The way sunlight caught cobblestones at 7 a.m. He called me from a hillside cafe. His voice carried wind and church bells. It's different than I imagined, he said. More complicated. More real. Real is harder, I told him. But it lasts longer. 3 weeks later, he returned with olive oil and stories. About narrow streets that confused tourists. About neighbors who argued over parking spaces. About normal life lived in extraordinary places. We're not making promises, he said over dinner in my kitchen. We're making plans. Small ones. Small plans grow better, I agreed. Like good bread. Slow rise. That summer, Bianca visited Seattle twice. Once in June. Once in August. She stayed in a small hotel downtown. Kept her own space. Her own schedule. We cooked together in my kitchen. She taught me about pasta water. About the difference between Parmigiano Reggiano and the American stuff that comes in shakers. Lucas took her to construction sites. Showed her how steel becomes buildings. How blueprints become homes. She showed him photographs of the Palio. Explained why grown men cry over horse races. Why neighborhood loyalty runs deeper than blood. They were learning each other. Carefully. Honestly. Like people assembling something precious from broken pieces. In September, an envelope arrived thick with handmade paper. A sprig of dried rosemary pressed inside. An invitation written in elegant Italian script. Not a wedding, Lucas explained. Something else. A ceremony about not pretending. The farmhouse sat in rolling hills outside Siena. Olive trees threw long shadows across stone terraces. A table stretched under strings of light. I flew to Italy wearing my best black dress. Comfortable shoes. A heart full of cautious hope. The ceremony was simple. No priest. No legal papers. Just words about truth. About provenance. About how the value of love depends on honesty. A local magistrate spoke about art forgeries. How fake pieces poison entire collections. How one lie corrupts everything around it. But authentic pieces, he said, grow more valuable with time. With proper care. With honest appreciation. Lucas and Bianca stood under the olive trees. Holding hands. Making promises that sounded like prayers. We vow not to pretend, they said together. To choose truth over comfort. Reality over performance. Simple words. Revolutionary concept. At sunset, Lucas asked me to walk with him to a low stone wall. Somewhere down the hill, a dog barked. Someone sang. The olives rustled in evening breeze. I'm still angry, he said quietly. Less every day. But still angry. I can carry some of that, I offered again. He nodded. Watched light fade over the Tuscan hills. The kind of light painters spend lifetimes trying to capture. Do you think Dad would approve, he asked. Of the ceremony. Of Bianca. Of this careful rebuilding we were all attempting. Yes, I said. And meant it completely. He would like that. She's real. Bianca joined us by the wall. Slipped something into my palm. Another watercolor. Olives and sky. But this one was different. Softer. More peaceful. On the back, new words in Italian. La verità fa più male all'inizio, ma guarisce meglio. Truth hurts more at first, but heals better. The wisdom of someone who had survived identity theft. Who had learned to trust again. Who chose love after betrayal. We stayed in Tuscany for a week. I learned to make proper espresso. Toured churches with frescoes older than my country. Ate bread that tasted like history. Lucas and Bianca walked through Siena's shell-shaped piazza. Past fountains and palazzi. Through streets where Carla had never been. Would never go. They moved like people discovering something new. Something true. Something worth the careful work of building. On our last evening we sat at the farmhouse table. Wine and olives and cheese that tasted like grass and sunshine. This is what I wanted to steal, Bianca said quietly. Not money. Not art. This feeling. This belonging. But you can't steal belonging, Lucas replied. You have to grow it. Like olives. Slow. Deep roots. I watched them across the table. Two people choosing truth over easy lies. Reality over comfortable fictions. The lights strung overhead swayed in warm wind. Italian voices drifted from neighboring farms. Normal sounds of normal life continuing. This was what I had fought to protect. Not just Lucas. Not just family. But the possibility of authentic love. Real connection. Truth that could survive daylight. We flew home together. 3 people instead of 2. A family expanded by honesty. By careful choices. By olive shadows that made harsh light gentler. Back in Seattle, autumn arrived with rain and changing leaves. Lucas returned to his construction projects. Bianca to her hotel in Siena. But something had shifted. Settled. Like a foundation poured on solid ground. Letters crossed the Atlantic. Video calls bridged time zones. Plans took shape slowly, carefully, built to last. In November, Lucas showed me blueprints for a small addition to my house. A guest room with its own entrance. Its own kitchen. Space for someone who might want to visit. To stay. To belong. For Bianca, he said. When she's ready. If she's ready. The blueprints showed olive trees planted by the windows. Light filtered through leaves. Shadows that would dance on walls. It's beautiful, I told him. And true. We broke ground in December. Exactly 1 year after the Christmas Eve that changed everything. The soil was cold. The work was hard. But the foundation went deep. By spring, we would have space for an honest future. Room for love that had survived deception. Walls strong enough to hold truth. Outside my kitchen window, Seattle rain tapped its familiar rhythm. The city kept its secrets. But we had learned to share ours. Olive shadows. Making everything softer. Making everything real.